What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Like and subscribe before we get started. Criminals aren't usually known for being smart, but some are so dumb that it's truly unbelievable. Check out some really stupid criminals who turn themselves in. Watch until the end because you don't want to miss out on our #1 pick. Two young drug dealers were traveling from Las Vegas to Montana to sell 20 pounds of marijuana. Everything appeared to be going smoothly, but when they crossed the border into Idaho, the two of them started to think that they were being followed by the police. They had gotten very high, and now the weed was making them paranoid. Eventually, the anxiety of being followed became too much for them, so they decided to call 911 and turn themselves in. The police showed up shortly afterwards and arrested both of them. But it turns out that there weren't any cops following them, and in fact there weren't any cops even near the same area that they were in. If these two dealers had stayed sober, they probably would have never gotten caught. A drunk man dialed 911 to report that he was being harassed. However, in reality, he was being arrested by police officers for reportedly throwing pizza at people. The arresting officers grabbed his phone and let the dispatcher know what was happening, and this quickly became one of the most popular stories at the station. A crack cocaine user thought his dealer had ripped him off. He said that he gave the drug dealer $60 for crack, but the dealer only gave him $20 worth. That's when he decided to call the police so he could help settle the dispute. He called from a payphone and waited for the cops to get there. When the cops arrived, they asked him if he had actually bought crack, and he said yes. He was then immediately arrested. A burglar broke into someone's home in Portland, but while he was looking around for things to steal, the homeowner came back. The thief hid inside a bathroom and called the police. Their conversation went like this. Thief: I just broke into a house and the owner came home. Dispatcher: You broke into a house? That's when the homeowner discovered that a stranger had locked themselves in her bathroom, and the dispatcher heard her ask what the thief was doing in her house. The criminal tried to tell her that he had been kidnapped and that she shouldn't worry. But the homeowner called 911 herself, and the criminal was arrested shortly afterwards. A group of criminals in New York were going over their plans to break into several different locations. Apparently, they had done this before and were very experienced at it. However, one of them accidentally pocket-dialed the police while they were in the middle of their meeting, and the police were able to hear every detail of their plan. All of them were arrested and charged with grand larceny. Getting robbed is a terrible experience. Coming home and finding out that someone has broken in and stolen your stuff takes a long time to get over. Most of the time, you just call the cops and let them take care of it, unless you're illegally growing drugs in your house. That's what happened to a criminal in Nebraska who arrived home one day to find someone had stolen his favorite hookah pipes. He called the police, but when they got there, they discovered the large amount of illegal marijuana plants that he was growing. Then they arrested him right on the spot. A burglar was inside someone's house but kept on hearing strange noises. For some reason, he decided to call the police to tell them about the weird things he was hearing, and they showed up soon afterwards and arrested him. After they searched the house, the police discovered that there was nobody else there, just the homeowner's noisy cat. A homeless man snuck into a backyard hot tub and somehow got stuck for over 10 hours. Once he realized that he wasn't going to get free, he called the police to ask for help. When he was on the phone with the dispatcher, he claimed to be a sheriff and told them to bring towels and hot chocolate when they came to rescue him. When the cops arrived, they immediately knew that he wasn't associated with the sheriff's department at all, and they arrested him after getting him unstuck from the hot tub. One night in New York City, a 911 dispatcher got a call that she wasn't expecting. The man on the other end of the line asked her if she knew where to get drugs. He was looking for meth and heroin specifically. The dispatcher told him no, but offered to send a cop over to help him out if he would tell her where he was. Apparently, he thought that the dispatcher would just give him some of the drugs that the police had confiscated from other criminals. Escape rooms are designed to be very difficult to get out of, and it usually takes a team of people working together to solve it. This burglar found himself stuck inside one of these rooms after he broke into an escape room business in a strip mall. It was dark when he broke in, and apparently he didn't know what kind of business it was. After wandering around in the dark for a while, he somehow managed to lock himself in the escape room. He freaked out and started looking for an exit, but didn't have any luck. Eventually, he called 911 to ask for help. When the cops arrived, they simply opened the door and arrested him. Two cops were standing in line at a coffee shop to pay their bill. Then someone cut in front of them. The man threw his drink at the cashier and told her to give him all of the money out of the register. He was more than a little surprised when there were handcuffs on him almost immediately. Somehow he didn't notice that the two people he cut in front of were cops who were in their full uniforms. An elderly man was being robbed in the middle of the street, and a brave good Samaritan jumped in to save the day. He punched the robber in the face and made him run away, and the elderly man didn't lose anything. However, the thief was upset that he had been punched, so he called the cops and told them exactly what happened. When they arrived at the scene, they thanked the Good Samaritan for his actions and then arrested the robber. Everyone thought that James Washington was a normal elderly guy who lived in Nashville, until one day he had a heart attack and thought he was going to die. Thinking that he only had a few moments left to live, Washington confessed to a murder that he committed nearly 2 decades before. He had kept his crime a secret for all of these years, but wanted to let the case be resolved before he died. But it turns out that the heart attack wasn't fatal, and after he recovered, James Washington was sentenced to life in prison. Impersonating a police officer didn't go very well for this next criminal when he pulled over for a real police officer, who carried a real badge and gun. The fake cop had installed lights and sirens on his truck and was wearing a fake cop uniform. But the real officer knew immediately that he was a fraud. The real cop arrested the impersonator and had his fake police cruiser impounded as well. Apparently, the criminal always wanted to be a police officer, but wasn't able to finish the training. He thought he could take a shortcut and just buy everything he needed to look like a cop, but this plan backfired big time. A thief in Texas tried to make a quick buck by stealing a safe from a church. However, the safe was super heavy, so he was only able to carry it a little ways before having to drop it in someone's backyard. Then he decided to try and crack open the safe right there, and the sound of his attempts to break the lock woke up the people sleeping inside, one of which was a police officer who lived there. The off-duty cop immediately arrested the thief, and the safe was returned to the church with nothing missing from inside. A career criminal got himself caught with social media. Jonathan Parker was a house thief who had stolen from dozens of homes in West Virginia. During one burglary, he decided to log into his Facebook account on the homeowner's computer in the middle of his crime, and then he forgot to log out when he left. This made the process of finding out who broke in super easy for the cops. A detective who worked on the case said it was his easiest day on the job ever. After escaping from jail where he was being held for robbery, Timothy Baker broke into a building at Baylor University to try and find some clothes so he could get rid of the orange prison jumpsuit he was wearing. Unfortunately for him, the building he chose was the Fine Arts Center, and the only clothes inside were costumes meant for school plays. Baker put on a 19th century bright green wool outfit that made him very easy to pick out of a crowd. Cops noticed him walking down the street almost immediately and took him back to jail. The cop who spotted him said that the costume made Baker look like a leprechaun, and it made finding him as easy as possible. Some criminals are harder to track down than others, but this next one made the cops' jobs very easy. Albert Dowdy broke into someone's house by using a can of paint to smash through a glass door. But when he hit the door with the paint can, the can exploded and paint went everywhere, covering Dowdy as well. He stole a few things from the house and then made his way back to his hotel. It wasn't long before cops were knocking on his door. All they had to do was follow the trail of paint that led right to where he was staying. Being arrested isn't the only possible consequence of stealing something. A thief in Australia noticed a parked car with its windows rolled down, so he quickly reached in and grabbed a container from inside. Little did he know that the car belonged to a professional snake catcher, and inside the container was a deadly venomous snake that had just been captured. A man in Canada had his home broken into just a few days before Christmas. The thief stole jewelry, expensive liquor, and even unopened gifts from underneath the Christmas tree. The morning after it happened, the homeowner drove to his job at a pawn shop. And a couple hours into his shift, 3 guys walked in trying to sell the stuff that they had stolen from his house the night before. He called the cops and all 3 of the crooks were arrested on the spot. The homeowner got everything back that was stolen, but he did have to rewrap the gifts that the thieves had opened.